What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. All right, welcome to episode 10 of the Crude Oil Podcast.
It's episode 10? I didn't even know that.
I know, we've creeped up very, very quickly on this. We're kind of in the dog days of summer. As we hear your puppy kind of breathing in, yeah, he's feeling it too. So we figured today would be a good opportunity to kind of go through some of the, I guess, trades that we wanted to see or potential changes we'd want to see. We'll go through a couple actually that are brought up on Cap Friendly, and then I figure we play a game towards the end of things and see where that kind of takes us. We're really trying to make up for time here.
Yeah, this is going to be a little fly by the seat of our pants kind of episode just because it's been a slow news week. It's only been 4 days or whatever since the last podcast we did, since we delayed it until Tuesday because of Greg's travel. But this might kind of be what the off season is a lot of not time filler, but trying to be a little bit more creative with it.
No kidding, yeah. Of course, we have I noticed we didn't even talk about the Avs and Lightning series, but have you been watching it at all?
Honestly, I haven't been watching it too much.
Yeah.
But I have got many messages from my two Avs friends as they're watching the games.
It's funny. I have the same situation. I have a buddy of mine who's a diehard Avs fan, and every time he texts me, I was like, oh, I should check in and to see, like, as a good friend would, just see what's going on in the game. But yeah, I haven't paid attention to anything. I don't know. I kind of feel like whenever your team's eliminated, it's tough to feel glued to it. I remember as a kid, like, being glued to the rest of the Stanley Cup Finals, but I don't know what it is this year.
It's not even this year. I've never really been one to watch too much outside of my own team. Like, if I'm hanging out with the guys, we're having drinks or whatever, and somebody throws on the Toronto-Montreal game, I'd probably sit there and watch it. Mm-hmm. But I won't be like sitting there working during the day and be like, oh, I can't wait for the Toronto-Montreal game tonight.
So before we get into that, have your thoughts changed get into our actual podcast. Have your thoughts changed with the finals? Do you still want Colorado to win?
Well, yeah, I still want Colorado to win. I think I'm just a little tired of the whole Tampa narrative because it's getting a little old. Yeah, it'd be cool to see them win 3 in a row, but I don't know. It kind of, maybe that'll shed too much light on the fact that the whole lower tax rates down there does make a difference where they can build a better roster because they can offer players less money. The fact that like Hedman and Kucherov and Stamkos are all making like $9.5 per year, and Vasilevsky, they're all under $10 million, I believe. Like, it's absurd that any of those players should be being paid under $10 million.
I think you make a valid point that really needs to be addressed with the NHL. When you consider the tax-free areas that you go in, like, it's such a benefit to certain teams. Like, you look at the Golden Knights too, like in Nevada with no state tax, and then you go to some heavier taxed areas, and it's tough to attract the players that you want. Like,
I saw some people making fun of that, I guess, because, like, you know how Arizona lately has been the place to trade all these, like, terrible contracts and stuff?
Yeah.
And, the players probably don't mind. They don't have to play. Plus, suddenly they're getting more money because they pay less taxes.
Yeah, it's totally true. Like, it's kind of whack, but it's the situation we're in. For me, watching this, I don't know what it is, but my thoughts for or my wishes for Colorado to win have deteriorated.
Why is that?
I don't know. I feel like they're very much a over-embellishing hockey club.
I was wondering if you were going to go back to that.
Yeah, and it's such a sour take from an Oilers fan that got swept by Colorado. Obviously, their fans didn't leave a great impression on me. But then you also include the fact that, like, I love Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon as players. I think they're fantastic. But the fact that Cale Makar was whining and bitching and complaining the entire last game that I watched, like, dude, it's your, first year in the league? Like, calm down, man.
It's Makar's like third year in the league.
Is it? Is it really?
Yeah, he made the jump into the playoffs 2 years ago.
First full year, though.
No, last year was his first full year.
Oh, I didn't think he played the full first year. Okay, well.
Jeez, Greg, get your facts straight.
Yeah.
Fake news, man.
Let them come at me now.
He's a Norris trophy winner, so you can't really
true.
give him a hard time anymore. He's earned that respect. But I do know where you're coming from because we kind of got to watch it firsthand. That it felt that way at least, and like I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm not biased toward noticing those things more so, and like I'm sure Edmonton's guilty of doing that. But I think part of it is those type of infractions happen so often to players like McKinnon and Makar, similar to Edmonton, where it happens to McDavid and Draisaitl, that when they do embellish something, it's more obvious because they do it more often because they're being like infringed when they're playing more often. So it just happens more often. And I just said more often like 8 times.
But you made your point.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. So, I mean, it's like picking the worst of two evils.
Well, that's the thing, because Tampa, they love to bitch and moan too.
Yeah.
There's no worse player who's losing in the league than Kucherov. He just turns into the dirtiest little shithead on the ice, just out there cross-checking, slashing everybody whenever he's losing.
And I know it was funny because everyone was bitching and complaining about the goal that the Avalanche scored when they had 6 guys on the ice, and the immediate comparison back to the year before when Tampa scored with 7 guys on the ice in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's kind of like it's karma. It's karma. So
well, at the same time, Tampa had 7 players on the ice at the same time as Colorado had 6. And yes, like I'm not going to sit here and say that wasn't too many men because there was probably 5 seconds in between Kadri being on the ice and McKinnon getting to the bench.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's overtime in the Stanley Cup final. They're not going to call that shit.
That's true.
And then I say that, and then they go in the next game with 3 minutes left. They call that shit. So I don't know. Maybe it's the reffing, guys. Maybe the reffing's just inconsistent. Where have I heard that before?
Honest to God, I wish that the refs, and it's been mentioned like numerous times, I wish that the refs had their own
review board, something to hold them accountable.
Review board, even just answering to the journalists after the game.
Well, that's the thing. There should be some sort of accountability. It kind of seems like it's like the players and the teams, and then the refs are just this separate entity that just do their own thing. And like I don't know if they have some sort of internal system to deal with this kind of stuff, but clearly it's not working. I think we were talking about this a while ago when Edmonton was still playing there, that we were hearing refs you suck chants from every single crowd, every single game, in every arena. Like there's no escaping it because every team has bad calls against their team nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe that's indicative of the state of reffing right now, and the fact that maybe refs just can't keep up with the speed that the game's gotten to nowadays. At least 4 refs on the ice. There's a reason why they had to add one.
No kidding.
A while back, and I think they need to look into other things as well to try and improve that.
Yeah, there needs to be some sort of reform for next year, but we'll see if we get there. One last thing I just wanted to ask you about before we get into the Oilers stuff. Did you see Ovechkin playing soccer?
My favorite comments on that after he scored is like looking like Putin out there in his men's league game scoring 10 goals.
Hilarious. The one thing that I love too is just the clip of him bowling that guy over.
Well, he was like 1.5 feet taller than that guy, probably 100 pounds heavier. Just looks like a football player running over a child.
Oh man, that guy can do no wrong.
I mean, he could do wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't do wrong, but it was entertaining to say the least.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive into things. I have 2 trade proposals to bring forth. I know that you've got a couple people you want to point in as well, and we're going to go through some of the ideas on Cap Friendly. I would like to preface that I haven't balanced everything to make sure that the
cap implications.
The cap implications work. I think they will, based off of the ideas that I've set forth, but definitely the ones we go through on Cap Friendly were. So I'm going to jump into my first proposal, and it's a little bit off the beaten path, but I kind of alluded to how the fact I think Stuart Skinner needs a little bit of a little bit of support heading into next year. And even if he can split 50-50, I think that a good option out there would be to look at James Reimer in San Jose. Now, the reason, first off, that I go there is they've got 3 goalies backlogged in San Jose. They've got jeez Louise, Greg.
He didn't have
Kakkonen.
They have Capo Kakkonen there?
Yeah, they picked him up at the trade deadline. And then there is Aiden Hill as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so they're hitting kind of their max. They've got to move one guy out. Obviously, you're not going to move Kakkonen out as soon as you trade for him. I think James Reimer, being the 34-year-old, kind of the odd man out, I think he's going to be someone that is available for trade, and I think he would be a good suitable fit. 34 years old, $2.25 million cap hit for the next year. And you're looking at his goals against average, like it's 2.9 last year. That's not horrific. 911 save percentage. He has a wealth of experience, and he's never been kind of the guy that has been the number one. So I think him coming into a situation where he's used to playing, I think would be a good fit for the Oilers, at least for Stuart Skinner as well. Now, in order to get him, you have to kind of look at whatever San Jose is going to need. And when you look at the Edmonton Oilers, I don't really know let me base this off that Mike Smith has to retire. That's the only reason that you would trade for him.
I think all of these things that we're talking about here, and I think it's kind of what everybody suspects will happen is Smith is going to retire.
Yeah.
I know it came out that Holland asked both him and Keith to make it clear whether or not they were going to retire before July 1st. So that timer's ticking down. We'll probably find out in the next week or so whether or not Smith will be retiring. But from what I heard from all his post-game stuff, the fact that he was playing through some injuries and does he want to go through a whole nother offseason of training and stuff like that, or is he ready to just hang him up? He's made more than enough money over his career. And I could see him being one of those guys who will have a career in broadcasting or something afterwards because he's got a personality. So I could see him doing something like that. So, yeah. Sorry, go back to your James Reimer.
No, the offer I was going to bring forth is maybe you can offload that Barrie contract with a pick in order to get him in.
So you want to do Barrie and let's just say hypothetically, a third rounder for Reimer?
Yeah.
In my opinion, that is an overpay.
Yeah.
I could see you being able to get him for just a third rounder, to be perfectly honest with you.
Really?
Mostly because San Jose has a lot of cap problems too.
Right, but so that's kind of the reason that I bring back and I'll kind of reach back to our last episode where I was arguing about CC, and the only reason that I brought up that possibility was just the fact that I think in order for the Oilers to make significant changes, they have to clear up some cap space that they have from overpayment. So when you look at that trade, it'd be nice to bring Reimer in. If Smith retires, you've got 2.2 cleared up, so you're paying an extra $50,000 for Reimer. But it'd be nice to see if you can kind of move an asset or kind of a depreciating asset for something that'll clear up some cap space. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, I'm down for clearing up cap space, but Barrie is not, to me, clearing up cap space because, like we were talking about before, he has value. Right. So it feels unnecessary to give up that value for, Reimer when we're also including a pick. And, when I was talking about how San Jose has cap trouble, they have just under $6 million in cap space, and they have 8 RFAs to sign with only that much cap space. So if anything, San Jose is going to be looking to unload cap space.
I also see San Jose is unloading a lot of players this year.
Well, their defense is just stupid with those contracts.
Yeah.
Carlson at 11.5, Burns at 8, Vlasic at 7.
Yeah.
They're just absurd contracts at this point for their aging defensive core.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
very
they're going to be
true.
looking for any excuse to get rid of money. Plus, they have Martin Jones buyout for the next 5 years still on their books.
I was just looking at that too. Holy fuck! There's $26.5 million in players that are tied up over like the age of 32.
Yeah,
Just
so
in their defensive core.
it's a little aggressive, but that's what happens when you sign those contracts. I know a
kidding.
lot of people might think that might be us with Nurse in the coming years. I don't personally think so, but that's what they're afraid of, is having situations like this, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's my first idea. Do you want to bounce to yours?
Well, my idea is a much, I would say, more blockbuster style trade,
Okay,
which is for Connor Hellebuck from the Jets.
let's do it.
So I think Edmonton knows everything Connor Hellebuck brings. He's more than capable of goalieing a team during the playoffs. He's a starting goalie through and through. He's won the Vezina over the past few years. Like, I think he's a pure starting goaltender.
Yeah.
The only thing is, if we were to get him, I think you'd have to pay quite a bit to even have a chance.
Oh, totally.
So it would be like something along the lines of a first, Puljujarvi, Samorukov, and maybe, not maybe, one of our goalie prospects, preferably not Skinner, because I'd like him to be our backup, but like Rodrigue or Fanti or something like that would be gone.
Yeah, that's thinking about it. Like, I don't know if you make that trade without losing Stuart Skinner.
Well, that's the thing. They're going to want somebody to fill in because they
Right.
don't have a goalie, I don't believe, in the system right now. I'd
Yeah.
have to check, but
I think, just personally, I think if it's not Stuart Skinner, the Oilers are going to overpay in the players that they do give out.
so you think they'll have to like give up like a Borgo or something like that?
Yeah,
In prospects instead?
yeah. If it's Rodrigue, I think you're looking at Puljujarvi, a first. Well, and that's just the rights to Puljujarvi, right?
True.
And then, yeah, I don't even know where you go from there.
Well, I think it would be good. Like, it's exactly what they need.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of all of these trade situations is like, what are we willing to give up? Sorry, my dog just hit the table. He's being stupid. But yeah, like, what are we willing to pay and lose in other positions to give ourselves a chance? And the only way I think Edmonton could possibly consider like doing these trades is to trade like one of their wingers and to trade like prospects, preferably defensive prospects, because we need our young forwards to come in and fill in those voids if we're trading our wingers away.
So based off your feedback, just looking at cap friendly, there is a proposal. It was rejected because of the cap hit, but there can be some tweaks. The one that was brought forth is Stuart Skinner, Ryan McLeod, and Dylan Holloway for Connor Hellebuck.
And the first round pick.
And the first round pick. I missed that.
So the
Dear
only way I would
Lord.
consider that is if you minus one of those assets that's not the first round pick at a minimum. Because I think all of those guys have value, and I definitely don't want to get rid of McLeod. I've been saying it that
Yes.
he's my favorite player right now. I don't want to see him leave.
I think that's an extreme overpayment.
Well, like, I understand why somebody would say, like, because Connor Hellebuck's really good. They're going to want value in that trade.
Yep.
But Edmonton's not going to be trading these incredibly important players for our future
No.
to give them a chance. Like, I think if McLeod got traded, like, so be it. But we're not also trading away Holloway, who would be filling the McLeod void likely in the roster.
Yeah.
So we're trading away two of those players, and then we have nobody to fill that position, really.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I don't know what you do with that in terms of trying to get him here.
Yeah, I think it just starts with the first and Stuart Skinner, and then you build up from there.
Okay, so I'm going to throw out my second option here for a look. And I guess if you're looking at the nuances between the left and right side of the Edmonton Oilers, it kind of creates more of a backlog. But I was looking at the rumors with Jake DeBrusk. I mean, we've been talking about it for 2 years. Let's dive into what it would cost to bring him here. I was thinking like Puljujarvi in a first. And that's on the basis that Puljujarvi signs, a reasonable contract here. I don't know if that even is enough to bring him over. So we'll have to look into that a little bit.
Well, I think that's enough from Boston's perspective. They're just looking for a roster player to fill in that role who can play in their top 9, just like DeBrusque. Because I heard Bergeron's coming back for another year, so Boston's looking to still compete for at least another year. So they're not going to be looking for picks and prospects this year.
And from my understanding too, Bruce Cassidy didn't like DeBrusque. That's what I thought it was.
Well, that's true. Maybe he needs another year there with their new coach, but there's got to be a reason. Bruce Cassidy was a great coach.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a reason why he didn't like him. And I have a feeling based off of the Boston model, it could be that his defense is rather poor and he just didn't fit their system there because they're a defense-first team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we need more offensive players in this town compared to what we already have. We need defense and the focus on defensive play because that's where our team has struggled for years and years and years. And I think people are finally realizing that now that we have depth forwards and stuff like that, that there's still just this black hole on defense.
Yeah. Speaking of coaching and stuff, with Bruce Cassidy leaving, did you see, this is kind of a little bit unrelated, but did you see the uproar with Dallas Stars fans with the
Pete DeBoer hire?
Yeah.
I didn't see the
Wow.
uproar, but I'm not surprised.
They
also
are pissed.
I'm a secondary Devils fan. I've followed them as long as I've followed Edmonton, but Edmonton's just my team because it's local as well. So it's easier to follow the team.
Yeah.
But DeBoer was awful. After he took them to the cup the cup finals in 2012, and then after that he was just god awful.
Yeah.
And just ran that team into the ground. And then he goes over to San Jose, does okay in his first year or two, runs the team into the ground. Same with Vegas. And now Dallas should be afraid too, because I think Dallas getting rid of Rick Bowness, they're ready for a young gun to come in.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I absolutely despise about the NHL is this coaching carousel.
Right. It's the same guys.
If I were to get fired from my job, there's no way another place would be knocking and be like, "You want to come work for us?"
Exactly.
There's a reason you got fired. The only one I can argue is like Bruce Cassidy, for example. He was successful. He got Boston to the Cup final and made playoffs 5 years in a row.
But it was his first tenure, right?
Well, exactly. But it's the same thing why I'm happy we signed Woodcroft and actually gave him a chance. I was afraid we were going to say fuck it and give the position to somebody else who got fired from their other job.
Well, and then when you think of the fact that you have all these players who develop, I know we're kind of getting off the ventured path here, but you have to be in line with the players that you're developing. And how many times have we run into a situation where there's a coach who just doesn't know how these players are motivated anymore?
Well, a lot of guys don't like to play young players, these older coaches. Yeah. Even look at Tippett when he was here. He was very hesitant to give the younger players more responsibility.
Yeah.
So, that's the nice thing about having a young coach who's coached these players in the AHL and stuff, coming up and having the confidence and knowing what they bring and how to foster their talent a little bit more, or help refine their game defensively, because that's usually the big area that these young players struggle in. Is they know how to be offensive. They've dominated for years in juniors and stuff, but they don't know how to play proper defense when suddenly the guy across from them is equal to or better than them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Jake DeBrusque was just my other idea. I think it'd be nice to have. He's a good pure goal scorer, and he does like to throw a little bit of physicality into his game. It's kind of like the part of the game that Puljujarvi's just not, providing right now. But
do you think Puljujarvi can develop that in his game?
I don't know.
I've
it's
been
weird.
Curious about that.
It's weird because it felt like when he returned from Finland, it was he developed into a power forward for the first 5-10 games, and it was, oh my goodness, this is the kind of player that we have now, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah, well, I heard, I don't know if it was just a rumor, but during the playoffs, I think it was after the first round or even after the first few games, the leadership core of the Oilers approached Puljujarvi and asked him to play more physical, to use his size to his advantage and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it might have been even later in the playoffs, because in the last few games he was playing a little bit more physical and grinding a little bit more out in the corners and things like that. So maybe there's truth into this rumor or whatever that I heard, but
Yeah. Who knows? Do you have another?
I have one other one.
Okay.
And that is Jacob Chitrin out of Arizona.
Ah, yes. Okay.
I know there's been a lot of talk about that over probably the last couple of years, especially because Arizona's completely sold the farm to rebuild the team.
I was staring at that name for a long time yesterday when I was coming up with this stuff.
Well, they have Chitrin and like Keller and Schmaltz or something, and besides that, they don't really have any long-term contracts on that team.
Well, they got to clear up room for Austin Matthews in 2 years. So
True.
Yeah.
And when they have Connor Bedard next year coming in and stuff, they need that room.
Right.
But yeah, like I think he would be a good fit on the team. He would fit nicely behind Nurse. I don't know if he could play offside. He could maybe even play in the top pairing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I like to preach like left side, right side.
I was gonna, yeah, go on.
But with that being said, like you look at a team like Tampa Bay, for example.
Yeah.
Their left side is Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev.
Yeah.
So those are like their three best defensemen, and they're all lefties. They all play left side. So I think you can make it work as long as those players are good enough to not necessarily make up for their partners, but to still, I don't know, be effective even though they have those partners. And then in a pinch in the end of a game where you're trying to get a goal or you're trying to shut down a lead, you can put them both out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a great fit on the team.
So that's going to lead into my question to you. Do you feel like left side, right side, left shot, right shot is a big kind of tool in terms of figuring out who needs to be on your team?
I think it's useful in some senses. Like I've never played defense in hockey or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I have heard that like in the defensive zone, it's a lot easier to move the puck like when your handedness is on the same side of the ice as you are. Mm-hmm. It's easier to like make passes across the ice and like up the boards and things like that. So it puts less pressure on you defensively. Meanwhile, if you're lefty, you're like picking up the puck on your backhand all the time. I think offensively, it could be helpful in terms of like cross like east-west passes, so you can get one-timers off more easily. Mm-hmm. But even in the offensive zone, if you're like guy behind the net wraps it around the boards up to the point to you, right? Mm-hmm. You're taking it on your forehand. It's a lot easier to corral that puck than if you're taking it on your backhand and having to like move it across to your forehand to be able to get a shot off.
Okay,
so I think that's kind of the main reasoning for it, and I kind of find it funny. I think it was 2012 when Canada went to the Olympics, where Babcock was the coach, and he made such a big deal about handedness.
I know.
And like matching up like Weber and Doughty, lefty, righty, things like that. And I think that was kind of the start where people really started taking that seriously, or at least it kind of spread a little bit more. And I think it's important, like I mentioned, but at the same time, I think like if you have, let's just say we had 3 good left defensemen, you could run all 3 of those pairs pretty effectively. You don't really have to shelter anybody for the most part.
That's fair. I think where my thoughts come into it is it kind of depends on the strategy that you're playing with. I'm a big believer that if you're going to have 2-point shots, like obviously it's not going to work with the Oilers the way they run their kind of umbrella power play with the bumper in the middle and then the 3 guys on the outside. But like normally when you have 2 defensemen sitting on your power play, the only thing that I'd like to see is kind of playing on your off wing, so you have a right hand shot on the left side. It opens up for the one-timers, but other than that, like I'm kind of indifferent when it comes to that. But the thing is, with that being said, there's some players that they struggle like a right-handed shot playing on the left-hand side, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think we saw that with Justin Schultz, like when he was here trying to be moved around to try and fit the needs. So
yeah, that's true. And like I think it's important to be able to efficiently play like similar style and skill level games on like both wings. There's a reason why Chris Russell gets a lot of value.
Yeah,
because he can play both both sides is what they say anyways. So like I don't know, I think it's important. It makes players more comfortable. It helps younger players come in. If you've played left side historically, you don't want to come up and suddenly playing right side and being put in uncomfortable situations where you're on your backhand when you're used to being on your forehand. Mm-hmm. It makes it easier transition. So like I can see reasons why we would not want to trade for Chychrun, But with that being said, I think it would be useful to consider it at the very least for just having better defensive players.
Yeah.
That's what this team needs, is better defense. And like, I'll sit here and argue left, right all day, but I'd rather have like Chychrun on our left side as our second pairing defenseman than Duncan Keith any day.
Yeah. I would. I definitely would agree there.
Well, and with Woodcroft's system, I'm just going to continue for a second.
No, go for it.
With the way Woodcroft plays, he doesn't overplay his top pairing or whatever. He tries to play them fairly equally, especially his two top pairings. And I can see like a Chychrun-Bouchard pairing being a lot more effective than Keith-Bouchard, for example, were in the playoffs. They like playing, let's just say, Nurse's pairing plays 22 minutes, and the Chychrun pairing hypothetically plays 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that much of a difference. They're still playing the same amount of minutes, essentially. And I think nowadays you can't just have like two pairings and then your garbage third pairing that you throw out against the other team's fourth line and hope for the best. Because the other team's fourth line might only play 5 minutes a night, if at all.
Right. So back to your comments there. What do you think it would take to land them?
Well, at a minimum, it would be the first. I'd like to include probably a cap dump of some sort.
Yeah.
And they would want, at a minimum, they would want probably a defensive prospect to hopefully fill that role. And I'm going to keep using Sam Rukov as that prospect because I think he was passed on the depth charts by both Broberg and Niemelainen. So I don't think he has that much of a chance to crack the roster outside of injuries next year. So I would say a first, Samorukov, and let's just say Foegele.
I was looking at, so I just pulled up Arizona's cap room. I thought they were eating a lot of dead contracts, but it doesn't look like they are.
A lot of the dead contracts died this year, or over even the last few years. Like I think it was Prongers and Datsyuks and Hosas. I think those have all ended now.
Yeah, because the only one that's sitting on the books right now is Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
And that's just cap retention, too.
Yeah. Huh.
Something to consider.
Yeah, exactly.
Arizona has lots of cap room.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me bring you to a ridiculous, actually crazy trade on Cap Friendly.
Is this the trade proposal function?
This is the trade proposal function. This one sees the Edmonton Oilers dumping Jesse Puljujärvi and Evan Bouchard to Pittsburgh in exchange for John Marino and Tristan Jarry.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, yes, Jarry, it's like the one listener commented on Twitter that he would like to see Jarry in Edmonton.
Yeah.
But, like, John Marino left Edmonton for a reason. Like, why would he want to come back in the first place? Why would we want him back?
Yeah, I mean, you get your goaltender, but you get John Marino at $4.4 million, which is kind of an insane contract when you think about it. And to dump two prospects that are up and coming, I understand the Oilers are in a win now mode, but that does not put them anywhere closer to where they need to be, I think, anyway.
No, I think, like, now I'm going to feel like a hypocrite.
Why?
But, like, I'm pretty sure John Marino's a lefty, too. So we're just making a bigger hole on our right side to put another lefty on our roster. Like, I do really feel like a hypocrite after saying what I just went on that tangent about. But, yeah, that's a brutal trade. Like,
right-handed shot.
Okay, he's right-handed, so it's okay then. But, like, if we could bring Marino in without giving up Bouchard, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But, like, if you replaced Bouchard in that trade with Tyson Barrie,
yes,
then I would be
consider.
Yeah, I would consider it more, and maybe they would consider it as well because they're in the twilight years of Crosby and Malkin's career. Maybe they're looking for a guy with more experience to come run the power play and kind of be a little bit of a veteran presence on that team, not bringing in two rookies that don't exactly fit the timeline of the team.
Yeah, there's so much to that I could see it more realistic if Barrie came out of it, but yeah, it's a long shot. There's another one here. It's a 3-way trade with the New York Rangers and the Winnipeg Jets, eventually landing the Oilers with Connor Hellebuck. Just Connor Hellebuck. Out the door, you see Jesse Puljujärvi, Stuart Skinner, Philip Broberg, the first-round pick of this year, and the second-round pick of next year.
This trade, I was looking at this too while you were talking about the last one.
Yeah.
The only way I could see something like this happening is if they replaced the Broberg part of this trade with, like, sorry to say it again, Samorukov or something like that.
Yeah.
Then I could see it. But outside of that, it doesn't seem realistic. And this is a three-way trade that also involves Winnipeg trading Mark Scheifele over to the Rangers. And that's where Stuart Skinner would eventually go as well. So this would entail that the Jets have accepted their fate. They say, screw this core, and we're like resetting again.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a vulnerable question here because I feel like I'm out to lunch here, but I don't know if I'm living on an alternate universe, but is Connor Hellebuck actually that good? Like, you're getting 5 assets for it?
I think so.
You think so?
I mean, we played against him. He's a great goaltender, and he's playing against behind a so-so defense in Winnipeg. Not that he's going to come and be behind like the 2000s New Jersey Devils defense all of a sudden, but he's a good goaltender, and he can steal you games, and he tends to not shit the bed. Like, his worst is probably like Mikko Koskinen's average or something like that, and Mike Smith's average is like his worst possible game. Well, his ceiling is like Shesterkin's ceiling when he's playing on his game.
So it's not a good comparison because Winnipeg had a shit year. But Hellebuck, compared to the Reimer comparison that I made, also on a shit team, I'd like to add. Hellebuck, 2.97 goals against average. Team stat, sure. Reimer, 2.9.
How many games, though?
66. Reimer had 48. Okay, so there's a little bit of a deviation there. A 9.11 save percentage for Reimer in the 48 games. A 9.1 for Connor Hellebuck. Difference being $4.5 million.
I would still take Hellebuck.
Yeah.
Like, he's a proven player. Reimer, like, these were his stats, yes, last year, yes.
Yeah.
But historically, over the past few years, his stats have not been that good.
Well, so no, maybe I should word my argument a little bit different. But like, if you're gonna compare those two, I'm not saying James Reimer is Connor Hellebuck. What I'm saying is, do you pay 4 additional assets for Connor Hellebuck compared to what you get for James Reimer?
Well, if we're going to this trade, there's a reason why originally I didn't have this many assets in it, because I do agree. Like, I don't think it's worth putting holes all over your roster just to bring him in. And it's similar with like the Gibson trade, which I'm still interested in, but like I'm not overly interested in going over like 3 assets for him. Okay. Or unless there's cap dumps involved. Like, I could see this trade if we also included like a Cassian cap dump or something like that, or something along those lines to free up some salary. Because this trade right now, we're moving like 2 RFAs and $850,000 of cap hit under Philip Broberg for $6 million. Like, now we have to move out a bunch of money or else we're fucked. So you'd have to find a way to make it even in this trade. So we'd probably have to get some sort of other player that has a decent contract back and give up like a Cassian and Barry or something to even out the salary. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I do have to note that, I guess I was premising this off of the trade that was proposed, not by you. So it's not as if you gave that... Well, now I don't even remember what I mentioned earlier, so I could have said that, and I apologize.
No, it definitely wasn't 5 assets. Like, that's a lot.
No, it's a little bit much. Like, I don't know. If you removed 1, if not 2 of these assets, I would be able to stomach it, and that doesn't include second-round pick because that's worthless compared to the other 4 things.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just don't think that would be worth it for Edmonton.
I don't think so either. So the other just trade I want to consider is the John Gibson thing. Like, do you go out and pay? For me, I don't know what it is, but I feel because it's in the same division, I think the Oilers would pay more for John Gibson than they would for Connor Hellebuck.
That's true, but also it's still West and West, so
I guess
that may play. If it's not the same thing as if it was West and East.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing with Gibson though. You look at those stats compared to like Reimer, for example. his stats just don't stack up because he's struggled.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You're not gonna. Edmonton needs to find a diamond in the rough per se, but it's going to be really hard to do that, and it's just pure luck.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so I just don't think that it's. Is it worth giving up a shit ton of assets for a goalie? Like, yes, we've complained about goalies for years, but I don't know. It feels like the amount of goalies who've come through here and been successful, like outside of Cam Talbot, has any goalie come in here and been like super successful?
But it goes back to your fucking Dustin Schwartz comment. Like, do you not see a fucking commonality here?
Well, I know that a lot of people have complained about him in the past, and it does feel like with all the regimes that have went through over the years, like, how is he still there? There's a reason why I think there was the one season Koskinen went back to Finland and got a separate goalie coach, because I don't know if he just didn't want to work with Dustin Schwartz. But
like, and I feel bad because like I hate like promoting for people to lose their job because it's their, you know, their livelihood. But in a case like that where, you know, you haven't had consistent goaltending for 10 years and there's one like common denominator, sorry, pal, but like you gotta reinvent the wheel. You gotta try something.
I think the common denominator here is that they all live in Edmonton. That's the problem. It's us.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, like, yes, there's been goalies who've come in here and been both bad with Edmonton and elsewhere. There's been goalies who've come here and been mediocre, but then pretty good elsewhere, like Dubnyk, for example. So yeah, it feels like there's something with the team that's off. It might be the fans and the media and the pressure that's put on goalies when they come here. Like, I'm sure playing in Minnesota versus Edmonton is a lot more chill.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So it could help with that. And I still think, like, has our defense been good in the slightest over the past, 17 years since 05-06?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, like, playing behind a shitty defensive, maybe not system, but just not overly defensive players over the past few years has probably been a struggle for a lot of goalies who come in here.
Yeah, Chris Pronger really put a crucifix on this team.
It really seems like it. His wife cursed us as she was leaving the city.
She really didn't want to be here. I'm going to actually look this up while we're discussing this. I know we mentioned we were going to go through the Oilers lineup, but we
can do that another time.
Exactly. We're going to have so many dead days this summer, so we'll get into that another day. I just wanted to take a look because I know the Oilers defense is something to note during that run. You had Marc-Andre Bergeron, Corey Cross, Matt Green, Chris Pronger, Matthew Waugh, Alexei Semenov, Jason Smith, Yaroslav Spacek, Steve Stais. Like, it keeps going and going. Igor Ulanov.
The thing is, that's like 8 decent players, though.
Exactly. Like, you have depth. You're bringing in the equivalent of whatever the Oilers are throwing out now on their second line as your 7th or 8th defenseman. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, you haven't really had defense this solid.
Well, that's the thing. It's just been kind of, for years we're trying to like stitch all these issues with like a Band-Aid, bringing in like Nikitin and shit like that, where there's these players who like maybe had one good season somewhere but then just fall back to earth when they're put into high positions of responsibility in this team. Even look at Justin Schultz, where he played for Edmonton and struggled because we were playing as a top pairing defenseman. He goes to Pittsburgh and suddenly he's just like, you get to focus on the power play and to be offensive, and he's putting up like 60 points and wins a cup or 2 cups.
Yeah.
So
I'm just looking. I know that the Oilers, and people might shit on me for this, but the Oilers had a really good defense core in 2010. They had nobody that could score goals, but they had a good defense core. They were betting the farm on Gilbert Brulé to fucking light things up.
Oh,
but
I love Gilbert Brulé.
their back end had Lubomir Wisnowski, Ryan Whitney, Jason Strudwick, Laddie Schmid, Sheldon Surrey. Like, it wasn't anything. It's just, I think that may be the last solid year that the Edmonton Oilers had with defense, but ever since then it's been kind of...
See, the thing with that defensive core that you just named, though,
Yeah.
it's a lot more like offense oriented.
That's true.
Though.
That's very true.
When you have guys like Surrey and Whitney, and even like I think Tom Gilbert too, like they're more offensive orientated and less heavy defense. Mm-hmm. You had a young Jeff Petrie too. So that, like, I don't know. I think this team has been crippled by trading away talent and mismanagement of pro scouting in particular, and understanding and nurturing the talent that we have. So it makes me hesitant to always like trade away some of these young defensemen, especially because we lose guys like John Marino, like Jeff Petrie, like Justin Schultz, for example. He could have been our Tyson Barrie that we've had for a while. And I know there's other examples that I can't think of off the top of my head.
But like, I am very much with your point about the Oilers in terms of trading people away before they like hit their stride. Like, you look at Jeff Petrie, that's a prime example. But I think the one thing the Oilers have also been is super, super bad with overpaying players based off of a showing in one, outing. This might fucking get lit up like crazy, but you look at the Fernando Pisani deal. A fantastic, like, playoff, but really nothing outside of that.
Well, it's overpaying depth players. That's always been an issue with this team, where suddenly we're strapped with contracts for these third, fourth line players just because they had one good season or something like that. Mm-hmm. Instead, like, currently the way that we're doing outside of the Kaskin contract is we're top heavy with our money.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is the way you need to do it. You pay your talent and you fill, like, the other players are really replacement level players. So you fill them with cheap, like, minimum contracts from free agency. You bring in your rookies on their entry level contracts, and you fill those roles. And I don't want to say hope for the best, but that's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because outside of that, how are you going to afford a team? Like, look, even at Tampa, like, we've talked about them multiple times. They're giving their young players a lot of responsibility. There's a reason why, like, Braden Point comes in and Anthony Cirelli comes in. Matthew Joseph came in. Like, all these young guys came and made an impact on the team.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if anybody can hear my computer. It sounds like it's going to explode.
What? Yeah. It's as hot as we are in this room. But no, you make a great point. It's giving that leverage and letting them to actually grow. It's just, it sucks when you overpay someone who doesn't really. And, like, I understand Pisani ran into some issues, like some health issues later on. That's not something that the Oilers could have foreseen or anything like that. But it's just, it sucks when you pay, like, a Cassian that much money, or when you pay. The list is endless. So, just wrapping things up here. We'll, as I mentioned, we'll get into the Oilers draft stuff. We have 2 weeks heading into the NHL entry draft, which starts on the 8th, I do believe, the 7th or the 8th. It says the 7th, but I don't ever remember a draft starting on a Thursday.
Well, it's kind of weird because the season's still a little off.
Yeah.
So, and I believe they're also, if I'm not mistaken, are they doing everything in one day instead of doing the first round in one day and then the second to seventh round the next day?
I have no idea.
I believe I heard that that's what they're doing. I may be misremembering or misheard something, but either way.
Begins on Thursday, July 11th and ends on Friday, July 8th. That's new.
Wait, what?
It's new.
You said it starts July 11th and ends July 8th.
Did I say that? Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
I was like, wait. You
meant
7th.
The 7th. 7-Eleven. Slurpee's on the mind.
I could go for a Slurpee. It's fucking hot in this room.
I could fucking go for a Slurpee. I'm going for Slurpees after this now. So it starts on the 7th and goes to the 8th.
Free agency also starts in 5 days.
Shut the fuck up.
I believe. Maybe
Free agency starts before the draft?
I think so. It was July 1st.
How does that fucking work?
What do you mean? The drafted players don't play on your team.
But the trades are all based off of...
Are they?
Oh my god. You're can you hear all the rapid typing going on right here?
We need to Google things
what
quickly.
the fuck? July 13th.
July 13th? Why is it
Yeah.
July 13th?
I thought, well, because you have to.
Oh, wait, no, I'm dumb. Sorry, it's the buyout window that opens on the 1st.
Oh, okay. I was like, but you need the room to sign your RFAs and offer. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
I'm out here spreading misinformation.
It's all good. It's all good. What I was getting to is, have you watched any of the Mem Cup?
I've watched a little bit of it, mostly the highlights.
Yeah.
And Borgo's lighting it up.
Borgo
which
is
great.
insane.
And I also saw this player who had the most insane last name I've ever seen in my life. Did you see his last name?
No.
His name is Loris Raffinomezantosoa. It's, I think,
is it wrapped down his like arms?
I haven't seen. I was looking for pictures of his jersey and I couldn't find the backs.
Oh my
of them.
goodness.
But yeah, his name is just crazy. It's like 15 letters long. I don't know how they could possibly fit that on a jersey.
It's so funny when you look at some of the names. Like, I forget who it was. Back in Colorado, like in 2001-ish, they had a player with a double last name. I don't know why it's stumping me. Everyone's probably like screaming in their cars right now. But because they arch it, it was almost like this just big, like, fucking upside down U on the back of his jersey with the way his name just arched from like middle of his back to the middle of his back. It's pretty funny.
Well, that's like when we had Magnus Pajarvi Svensson or whatever.
Yeah. And then he just like finally adopted Pajarvi, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, fuck that. We're not fitting this on a jersey.
Too funny. But, yeah, other than that, I was nervous how we were going to fill this time, but we've done pretty good.
And we missed like half the stuff we wanted to talk about, so we can keep stretching this out. Because that stuff was less pressing to talk about.
What's that stuff?
Well, it's like the line thing you were talking about.
Where
We're going to do that in the future. We're going to do some all-time lines for historical Oilers doing a snake draft versus each other. And then compare teams and see who would win.
Exactly. Another week. We're into the dog days of summer, man. But, yeah, that'll do it for episode 10 already. Look at us go.